So Napoleon Bonaparte did a number of things when he became the French emperor. So Napoleon, after becoming the French emperor, he began to fight a number of wars, and he wanted to expand the French borders beyond. And this made him to introduce a number of approaches or methods in order to bring the entire Europe on one single cap dominated by the French Empire. So Napoleon Bonaparte, after realizing that he cannot defeat Britain militarily, he decided to implement what we call the continental system. Remember, Napoleon fought what we call the 1808 to 1811 Peninsular War, whereby he invaded Portugal, Spain, and these two were supported by Great Britain, and Napoleon was given a bloody nose in that war. Napoleon did not stop there. He went and he engaged, he attacked Russia. After Russia denouncing the continental system, which I'm going to explain, and this made him to collide with Russia in the war called what we call in a campaign known as the Moscow campaign. The Moscow campaign, it took place in 1812, but Napoleon is still there. He received zero success. That made him to come back home with a lot of humiliation, because he lost a number of soldiers, and he did not even have what we call face-to-face fighting, but he lost a number of soldiers. Napoleon did not relax. He went and he invaded Britain and her allies in what we call the Battle of Leipzig. That is in 1813. So Napoleon time came and he had many wars to fight at once. This later on made him to lose his position, the position he had way back. So Napoleon, after him being defeated on different occasions, this was a sign of humiliation, and Napoleon ended up losing what he had. So Napoleon Bonaparte, he was advised, after realizing that it was impossible for him to defeat Britain militarily, so he was advised to organize what we call an economic attack, to attack Britain, but this time around to attack her economy, because he could not defeat her face to face. But remember very well, from 1789, Britain was referred to as the political shining star of Europe and the workshop of Europe. Britain had many shopkeepers. She was strong economically. She had businesses that had at least strengthened her economic position. So Britain could survive on her economy. Britain could survive on her military position. So Britain was the master of the sea. So France under Napoleon organized what they call the continental system. This was an economic embargo. It was a total ban that was introduced by Napoleon Bonaparte to stop all members from trading with Britain as a way of freezing her economy. But this did not affect Britain, because many European countries could not survive without her goods. And still, in addition to that, even France herself could not survive, because even Napoleon did what we call smuggling. There was smuggling of goods at night. Even that's why Napoleon was given a blood nose in Moscow campaign. Britain was the good supply of what we call the winter jackets. So without winter jackets, Napoleon's soldiers faced a number of challenges. Remember, Russia is a country that is full of what we call winter, coldness. So Napoleon went there in the Moscow campaign when his soldiers are not equipped with what we call winter jackets, and this made them to be beaten. Are we together? Coldness. So the coordinate system was at such a time when Napoleon's power was at height that he wanted to strike and strive Britain. Are we together? He wanted to defeat Britain completely. He wanted to bring Britain under his control. Britain was known as a state with shopkeepers. Her economy was stable, strong, and being admired by many European countries, even France herself. Are we together? So he wanted to realize this by famous continental system. He introduced the continental system in 1806. He defeated Prussia in the Battle of Jena and the continental system by issuing a decree from Berlin in 1806. The decree ordered the closing of the ports on the continent to British ships. Are we together? Napoleon started to ban all those countries, all the routes that Britain could use to improve during trade as a way of suffocating her economy. So the colonial system was further strengthened by the decree of the Warsaw in 1807, Milan in 1807, and the 14th Bill in 1810. So to bring Russia under the scheme, he marched with an army and defeated her in what we call the Battle of Haleo and Friesland in 1807. Russia and Prussia concluded the Treaty of Tilsit. Are we together? The Tilsit Treaty of 1807. While the former agreed to come under what we call the continental system, the penalty which the latter had to pay was heavy. So from the territories acquired from Prussia, Napoleon constituted with the what we call the Dutch of the Warsaw, and from the other acquisitions west of Elbe, and created a new kingdom of Westphalia. So his brother Joram was made the king of Westphalia, and the Treaty of Tilsit brought an end to the Third Coalition, leaving Britain alone in the field. When the Pope refused to come under the continental scheme, Napoleon annexed the Papal States in 1809. Napoleon signed an agreement with the Pope, I think in 1801, he signed an agreement with the Pope, and this was given a title, the Concordat Treaty. So the Concordat Treaty was a treaty that was signed between Napoleon and the Catholic Church. However, the Pope could not accept his states to live without the British goods. So the Pope continued to trade. Pope states continued to trade with Britain, which annoyed Napoleon and violated the Concordat Treaty by imprisoning the Pope. This brought Napoleon at war with the Catholic Church. So Britain restored the continental system by issuing orders in council in 1807. So according to those orders, Britain threatened all the vassal states trading with France to be captured. Even in neutral vassal states carrying goods to Britain in the continental, I will say that Britain restored the continental system by issuing what we call the orders in council in 1807. According to those orders, Britain threatened all the vessels trading with France to be captured. Meri, amato, byonna ebyakozesa to trade with ebitambuza byamaguzi. Britain ordered them to be captured. Even the neutral vessels carrying goods to France were to be captured, and they were diverted to the ports of Britain. So the continental system was proved harmful and disastrous to the people of Europe. It was impossible for those to do without the British goods. It perished all countries which came under the scheme, that is the continental system. Even France was forced to buy clothes and leather for the soldiers. Napoleon started what we call smuggling. Kugama, he did something that affected him also. So Napoleon Bonaparte wanted to stop Britain, wanted to weaken Britain, but at the end of the day, he also weakened France. Cases of unemployment rose, inflation broke out, a lot of things started to take place, which made Napoleon unpopular home. As France was not sufficient in the production of either essential commodities like sugar, coffee, tobacco, and cotton, their prices shot up. The scheme was doomed to fail because Britain was very powerful on the sea and she could send goods to any country. Portugal disobeyed the decrees. Russia openly defied the Continental System or denounced. It led Napoleon into war with Portugal, Spain, and Russia. For example, the Peninsular War and the Moscow Campaign. And that ultimately brought about the destruction of his army. So the colonial system just brought Napoleon problems and made him unpopular in France and entire Europe. We have what we call the Peninsular War. The Peninsular War, this was a war that was fought in 1808. Peninsular War, this was a military confrontation between Napoleon and Portugal. So as Portugal disobeyed the decree of colonial system, or as Portugal denounced the colonial system, Napoleon the Great conquered and captured or occupied Portugal. He forced the king of Spain to abdicate and he placed his brother Joseph Bonaparte on the throne. The rise of national feelings among the Portuguese, or among Portugal and Spain in the Iberian Peninsula, revolt against Napoleon. So, taking advantage of those opportunities, Britain sent Arthur Wellesley to Peninsula. So he defeated the French army in Portugal, and the French evacuated Portugal. Napoleon's attempt to recapture Portugal failed. Arthur Wells entered Spain and defeated the French in the Battle of Trafalgar. Altogether, that is in 1809. Samalakar, that is in 1812, and Vitoria, that is in 1813. So the French forces were driven out of Albania Peninsula. So Peninsular War, that is something that Napoleon did to trying to position himself. We have the Australian Revolt of 1809. The Australian Revolt, so the reserves of France in the Albania Peninsula reused Austria into action. She rose into open revolt. Napoleon Bonaparte defeated Austria in the Battle of 1 gram in 1809. He married Marie Louise, the daughter of the Emperor of France. The daughter of Emperor Francis the First of Austria. It is in 1810 to 1810. In the previous year, he had divorced Josephine, as she proved incredible barren, incurable barren. She could not give birth to babies. She could not give birth to kids, something that annoyed the husband. So we have the Russia campaign, Leipzig at Waterloo. As Russia openly defied the colonial system, Napoleon Bonaparte marched in Russia in 1812. It was a fatal step. It was the winter in Russia that made Napoleon test his first defeat on land. So in 1813, the Fourth Coalition was formed by Britain, Russia, Prussia, and Austria against one person, France. Napoleon was defeated in Russia. Napoleon was defeated in Germany in 1813 at the Battle at Leipzig, which often called the Battle of Nations. So this was also known as the Battle of Nations. So the Battle of Leipzig was also known as the Battle of Nations altogether, and was driven back to France after him being defeated. This was Napoleon's second defeat. The various allies occupied Paris, and Napoleon was abdicated in 1814. He was exiled in the island of Elba. Louis the 18th and Charles the 10th, his brother, they were restored. So was made the king of France. In meantime, Napoleon escaped from Elba, returned to France in 1815, and remained as the emperor for 100 days. But the allied nations of Europe got alarmed. They united together and completely defeated him in the Battle of Waterloo. This was his last battle in history, where Napoleon Bonaparte was defeated. And after him being defeated, at the end of the day, even those weaker states started to look at Napoleon as a actually defeatable person. Among others, we have famine, there are many. So a lot of things happened in France due to the colonial system. Famine broke up, unemployment cases, diseases, because people who had jobs were no longer working. At the end of the day, it made him infamous and unpopular home. I beg to submit from there. Have a good day.